Hey ladies, gentlemen, and people beyond the binary. Welcome to a Platform of One's Own, a Digital Writers Festival Lunchtime Lit.
We would just like to begin today's session by acknowledging that we are speaking on country belonging to the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations. Sovereignty has never been ceded. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. We pay our respects to elders and First Nations people who are tuning into this event right now, and we invite everyone who's listening to reflect upon the country on which they reside, wherever this may be broadcast to. So I'm Lynn Nguyen, the program coordinator of the Emerging Writers Festival, and also the deputy editor of Liminal Magazine.
Yeah, and I'm Leah McIntosh. I'm the editor and founder of Liminal, which is an online space for the exploration, interrogation, and celebration of the Asian Australian experience.
Yeah, and we're streaming to you live from my study, and I'm wearing sweatpants.
She's wearing sweatpants. It's great. No one was supposed to know.
So Leah, I'd just like to begin by getting you to maybe introduce Liminal, what it is, and also how it began.
Oh my gosh. So Liminal is kind of like, it's kind of hard to explain. Whenever I try to explain it, it's ridiculous. But we post an interview with an Asian Australian creative, or just someone who's been doing really good things every Monday morning. So it's a long form interview complete with portraits of the subject. How it began, it's almost been a year, so it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
We launched in March, but it kind of began out of my master's thesis. So I was finishing my master's in London last year, and I'd been studying the poets Jenny Zhang, Timothy Yu, and Li, and looking at the Chinese American body in space. So it's like quite often mutilated or grotesque, or it has a really interesting and volatile relation to the space around it. So looking at that and coming into contact with a lot of concepts like Edward Said's concept of Orientalism and Homi Bhabha's third space, and even just like really basic binaries of self and other. And seeing these concepts and kind of wondering why we don't talk about them more, and realizing that a lot of academia can be quite oblique or obtuse, and wanting to break down those barriers, and kind of at the same time of realizing this, like Trump was, being elected, and Pauline Hanson was coming back into power, and Brexit had just taken everyone completely by surprise. So there's a strange, like, political...
Yeah, I think Liminal definitely came out of the particular political and cultural climate that we exist within.
Yeah, it was this moment where it's like, what is happening? We need to do something about it. So there was those two things, and then they intertwined with this feeling of coming home, and feeling really alone. After a year of just kind of being away, but also like feeling a little intellectually alone and wanting to connect with people who were interested in the same things in terms of like creative practice, but also identity. So
I think what you said about feeling alone within academia is something that many people of colour can identify with.
Yeah, definitely.
And like one of the great things about Liminal is that we can discuss these quite like deep thoughts and theories, but in a way that is dialogic and conversational.
Yeah.
It is just also part of our everyday lived experience.
Yeah, something that isn't just theory, something that correlates directly to everyday life. So I think my first interview was with James Robinson, who's an incredible photographer, and he's currently working in New York. I think he shot Rihanna for Oyster the other week, which is insane. And we had this incredible conversation about how his practice and his identity are kind of very much intertwined. He creates these really beautiful images and films where the protagonist is often a person of, I think always a person of color, and they're these beautiful like utopian kind of other worlds which we could conceivably exist in. So yeah, choosing to talk to him kind of solidified the concept of choosing to interview other people.
Yeah, and what I like about us releasing an interview
like
once a week, yeah, is kind of, it speaks to the idea that there's everyone's relationship with identity is individual and singular, and even though we're talking within the umbrella of, you know, the Asian Australian experience, by having a discussion once every week, it's also gesturing to the fact that there's no stable, coherent Asian Australian collective identity, and really it's an ongoing conversation that we have with no definitive endpoint. And we're constantly querying and I guess like trying to unpack these categories that we find ourselves within. So yeah, I guess how did you come to Liminal as the name?
Oh my god! So this is quite funny. I'd come home and I kind of had decided I wanted to do this project, but I'd been a bit slack, you know, getting it together. And finally, at like 11 p.m., like I decided I wanted to, you know, just register a domain name and get it started. And it came down to two words, which both mean the same thing, but I'm really glad I chose liminal because the other one was interstitial, which sounds a lot like interstellar. Anyways, so liminal.
And it's also too many syllables.
Yeah, there's so many syllables. Well, like 4 syllables. So liminal means on the boundary or on the threshold or kind of like an in-between space, but it also means like the initial stages or the initial process of something. And I feel like Asian Australian representation is very much still in the initial stages of becoming. Like we're still on the fringes, we're still on the edges. I mean, we're getting there. We have the family law. But we're still on our way.
I like that there's many ways to interpret liminal and liminalities. You know, for me it's, and for many of us it speaks to that notion of kind of living within the hyphen or inhabiting inhabiting the hyphen, and I guess the sense of always being in between and never really belonging here or there, which is I guess the main commonality that Asian Australians of our generation share. That inhabiting multiple cultural legacies and spaces.
And like I guess conceptually we've created a space where you can belong or feel at home. Maybe. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, and like you spoke about, you know, the scarcity of Asian representation within Australia's cultural landscape. And I think for me at least, like liminal really was about speaking back to that and about kind of having agency over our own narratives and the means in which to produce our own cultural products and outputs.
I feel like there's this I really enjoyed our interview with Michelle Law, again, mentioning the laws, how can you not? She says you can't be what you can't see. And I feel like we've been given images of what Asians can and can't be, but we've been given them not from Asian people, we've been given them from people who aren't, so dictating what they view us to be good at or what they view us to be acceptable within. And
like bringing back bringing academic theory back into it, there is, you know, a specific term for this phenomenon, and it's called symbolic annihilation. That refers to the absence of representation, but not only that, also I guess the either never seeing yourself represented, and when you do, seeing yourself either as a caricature or as the butt of the joke. So there's that dual phenomenon, which I think speaks to marginalized communities in general.
Definitely.
And there's this great Diaz quote, the way in which to make a person a monster is deny them any reflection of themselves throughout culture. I think I'm doing that quote, but it goes something like that.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So would you say that like liminal is centered on self-definition and representation?
Definitely. I think I really liked the two-pronged concept of the interview, so the actual words of an Asian Australian, so not cribbed, not like cut up, just their own words, combined with images that I create with them of themselves. So together, I think they kind of work. You have this internal monologue, or not monologue, internalization of oneself through the interview, and then you have this external like positioning of the body throughout. That makes sense.
Yeah. So let's speak a bit, I guess, about Liminal as specifically a digital project.
Oh yeah, Digital Writers Festival.
Reflecting upon it for our DWF conversation, I thought that really, like, Liminal, I don't think could have been created without being online.
Oh my god, definitely not. Yeah. It's funny. I think you can break it down into like conceptual and practical means. And practically, I was super broke when I came home, and the only way I could possibly get anything out within the 6 months was to do it online, because you just you pay for hosting, a domain name. Most social, like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, are free. It's all quite easily accessible for someone who's creating. And then conceptually, you had some really good things to say about this the other day.
Yeah. So I think in many ways, how we come into dialogues around politics and culture is very much rooted in online spaces and online discussions, especially for our generation. And I think the internet is really integral to agency and autonomy for many marginalized communities and identities. It's a means to forge connections and break down geographical barriers, and you could create a sense of community that you might not have access to within your everyday life.
Yeah, definitely. I think in terms of accessibility, it's been incredible. It's also like kind of a political statement to do something online, because it means that you can grant access to anyone who has access to a computer, which, like with public libraries and schools, it's pretty accessible. So like, instead of printing out an indie publication with a run of like 50 and selling it for like X amount in Melbourne, which would have reached like 20 people, we've instead decided to put it online and make it like there's no paywall. It's just really, it's really there for anyone to have a look at, which I like a lot.
Yeah, and also like through Liminal, we're also having dialogues with kind of collectives in Canada and in
Rice
the US.
Paper.
And I think like being able to self-publish online allows you to create work and just put it out there and find an audience, and also means that you're able to, I guess, surpass gatekeepers and traditional channels of media output and distribution.
Yeah, definitely. We like, the only person we have to listen to is ourselves. And I feel like in a really sad way, what we're doing is experimental, or like a big risk, which is kind of depressing. But it's become this thing where we can take whatever risks we want to take because it's our project, and because it's not business oriented, because we fund it completely 100% ourselves, it's a project of love and kind of experimentation rather than let's do this to maintain a readership.
And we're not beholden to anyone else or
Thank God.
any larger organizational institution. And in many ways, we can make it up as we go along.
Which we have. But it's been interesting having full artistic control over a project, which means so much to both of us, I think.
Yeah. So I guess like the pros of creating your own platform completely from scratch by yourself is that you have immense freedom, agency, flexibility, and autonomy.
So many things.
On the flip side, to paraphrase Spider-Man,
oh no,
with great power comes great responsibility. And
I feel more like Poison Ivy.
Just saying that, like, even though, it's great to be able to branch out and do everything by ourselves, also means that, you know, like you carry all the financial burden and all the risk.
Thanks to my full-time job.
Yeah,
but also I think there's the burden of, I mean, connected to that is rep sweats, representation sweats. So feeling like we have become bigger than the tiny project we were before, and people expect more and more of us to create a fuller representation of what it means to be Asian Australian. So it's been interesting grappling with people who don't understand why we exist, and then people who really, really are happy we exist but want more. So there's this.
Yeah, I think when there's a scarcity of representation, there's always going to be the burden of representation, because there's just so like little outlets in which to see visibility,
to see ourselves.
Yeah, so it means that I guess we definitely feel that responsibility, and we can. There's only so many weeks in a year, and
what we're up to 33. I guess this is 34. I don't know. We'll see.
And it does mean that by publishing online, the reach and the readership occurs a lot faster than it would in analog mediums, you know, and feedback is also instantaneous and immediate.
Yes,
which is the nature of producing work online, which is a blessing and a curse.
It's mostly a blessing. It's so nice to have instant gratification for something that you do.
Yeah, and it's interesting that the kind of online content has the idea of like existing within really quick cycles and being easily digested and consumable and maybe disposable. But I think we really try to kind of, resist that by deliberately having long form interviews that are very carefully crafted and considered.
Trying not to be clickbait.
And
I think we can kind of we can almost connect this to the photographs in a way. Like they are very much well considered in analog form, but like putting them up there to be like I don't know. Everything is on the website, so you don't have to consume it immediately. It hopefully has more staying power.
Yeah. And I think it also means that that's the way like the where like we can generate our own form of content. We can break the rules.
I
love
breaking the rules.
Take creative risks. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the photographs as well.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So let's see. I've been taking photos for a really long time now, and it's definitely started off in high school as like a very cliched way to externalize my internal world, but also just capture moments which were really important to me that you can't really find anywhere else. So just taking pictures of friends and family and people I love. And I was really inspired by Ryan McGinley and then Golden, and most recently Ren Hang has been incredible. So those three, they're not fashion photographers. They shoot a very gritty, realistic life, and a life that is their own. So it felt really organic shooting like that. Wasn't because that's my artistic practice, I guess. Bringing that in to portray Asian Australians and literally represent them has been really interesting, because I've been working with people, because photography, it has a really interesting power dynamic where, I mean, you can see it in the verb you use. You take a photo. So what I do with the shoots is I shoot on a Hasselblad. I have.
Yeah.
Should I show it? Oh gosh. This was not planned. Oh dear. So I shoot on a Hasselblad. It looks like this, but you shoot from down below, so you still maintain a kind of relationship. Yeah, that's the one. A relationship with the subject. And also shooting from down below means that you're actually always looking up at the subject. So I find that interesting in a political way, because it's the same power dynamic as, I guess, like Greek or Roman busts. So like when you have, like Socrates, a bust of him, you're always looking up at him. So the relationship is quite interesting. So just kind of trying to subtly uplift, like in a very literal way, the people I shoot. Is that?
Yeah. And
I got lost.
No, it's really interesting, because I think even though we're a digital platform, you have deliberately chosen to shoot in analog and to shoot with a Hasselblad, which is a very, finicky camera.
It's a bit grumpy sometimes.
Yeah, and obviously, like, the easier thing to do would have been to shoot with a digital camera.
Yeah, I think that was also a choice. I was looking at, so the Hasselblad was or the one I'm using was produced in 1957. And when did the White Australia policy, it's like, similar times. So there's still like a lot of rampant racism. And I just wonder if Asian Australians would have been depicted using this medium in a similar way, depicted as they are, not as they should be. So trying to reclaim kind of our representation through a really old medium in a new format.
Yeah. And it also, I guess, speaks to like the collision of like digital and analog, really, and how the two can coexist side by side. Yeah, and there's like this back and forth between like old analog mediums and new digital technologies.
Definitely. I think people are, I don't know, film photography is the best.
Yeah, and I really see like the liminal discussions and interviews kind of as a counterpoint to rightness in the arts, because like most of the people that we are talking to are creative practitioners, and where not only are we discussing issues of like culture and representation and identity, but we are like wanting to have discussions just about art making and practice.
Definitely, because I mean, so often I don't know, I was at the Asian Australian Studies Research Network conference the other day, and kind of just talking about, I think it was Julie Ko, who was talking about being put on panels because she's Asian, or being put on panels because of the writing she does, and they're oftentimes two very dissimilar things, even though one informs the other. So just giving artists a space to talk about their art that doesn't necessarily have to be about race.
It might be like inflected or informed by their lived experience and of course their identity and how they, exist within the world. But I think so often like people of colour within the arts are kind of like asked to speak on behalf of communities,
an entire race,
or on behalf of their identities and not their craft. And bring it back to the digital.
Oh, sorry.
Like it's so important to have, I guess, spaces and platforms like that are independent and exist out of mainstream structures of cultural production, and digital mediums really facilitate that.
Definitely. They're so democratic in the way that anyone can really access them to create or to consume. It's tricky because we can be accused of ghettoization or racial nepotism, which but I think until we live in a legitimate meritocracy, I think affirmative action is really necessary. And we can find that through creating our own spaces and also trying to, infiltrate institutions. But I think both of those things need to happen at the moment.
And coexist. And
definitely.
Be in communication with one another, really. Like, infiltrate and dismantle.
Love it.
Yeah. And it's interesting because even though we are a digital platform and project, mostly out of necessity, it's not just digital versus IRL. We also are moving into other projects.
Yes, we are.
Outside of our weekly interviews.
So collectivizing, but also we're having an exhibition at the end of the year, and also running a poetry night in January with Asian Australian performers. So big things ahead, guys.
And maybe one day there'll be a print.
I hope so. I love print.
So we thought it might be a good idea.
Oh no. Yes.
Maybe you can lead into this, Leah.
Okay, fine. We thought it would be really cute if we ended with the 5 questions that we ask every interviewer. Every interviewee. We're the interviewers. So the 5 questions are, well, the first one is, do you have any advice for emerging, whatever the person normally is, so emerging, for you, an editor or a writer, I guess?
I guess the main takeaway would be find your people, find your community, find the people that inspire you, nurture, nourish you, and also keep you grounded. It's hard out there.
It's so hard.
So it like builds and strengthens communities and relationships, I think. And I think everything else kind of comes out of that. Really, it's really hard to
having a jumping out.
Setting out by yourself is difficult, and I guess often we kind of exist within a climate that I guess imposes individualism and competition, and it's you have to remember to resist that and kind of step back from that mentality.
Find your Lynn. Oh no, what's my advice? I don't think I can give advice yet. That was really good advice.
You definitely have advice.
I did a workshop with Chris Kraus when she came to Monash a few years ago, and she gave good advice. And it's just, if you're, I think as an emerging artist, we're always really scared to put stuff out there, and scared of making mistakes and scared of being seen as something that we're not. But her advice was to just put things out there and let them travel. And if you keep doing that, they'll travel, and they'll travel into the hands of the right people who connect with it on some level. So, and I think it's kind of, it's terrifying, but it's kind of what you have to do if you want to pursue a project. Oh, what are you currently listening to?
This is a bit of a plug, but it's also an honest answer. I'm listening to the Emerging Writers Festival podcast called Future Perfect. You can find it on iTunes, but no, like, actually go listen to it. It's incredible. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm excited. I've been listening to, we have an interview with Beverly Wang coming out next week, so I've been listening to It's Not a Race, the podcast on repeat.
Great podcast.
It's incredible and totally worth listening to. Yeah, it's really great. What are you currently reading?
So when at MWF I got to meet Nguyen. Whoops. She's a Vietnamese poet and publisher. So I'm reading her book of poetry called Words Breathe, Creatures of Elsewhere. And also when she was here, we exchanged. I gave her a copy of Lifted Brow, and she gave me a copy of this anthology that Arja Press published last year. And it's, mainly Vietnamese writers. It came out of the poetry festival that she runs each year in Hanoi. So I'm making my way through that.
Incredible. I'm stealing these.
Yeah, what are you reading at the moment, Leah?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so last week I met Julie Coe and it was the best moment of my life. But she, there we go. She edited a collection called The Gold Standard, and it is in response to the Michael Derek Hudson incident where he pretended to be a Chinese poet to get published.
I'm also going to steal that from
it's
you.
Incredible. And I'm just starting that one. And I've been reading this one for like 2 years because it's real heavy. But Claudia Rankine edited these open letters. The collection's called The Racial Imaginary, Writers on Race and the Life of the Mind, and they're kind of looking at whiteness and race in America, and they're just like really short letters, but they're heavy and filled with goodness.
I'd definitely read her non-fiction poetry extended works. Claudia Rankine.
We need one of her. How do you practice self-care?
I found this question so hard. we ask it in every interview.
Yeah, we do.
But it's like I honestly don't know.
No.
I think I spend time with my cats.
That's
like how is my self-care? Yeah.
Pets are really good.
Actually, I'd put like journaling every other night is my form of self-care, I think.
It's kind of
getting everything out.
Yeah, we need to be better at self-care. I think this year I've been learning to protect my time, because when you have multiple different things, sometimes you just need to make sure that you carve out time and space to breathe. But if you want more self-care tips, look at our interviews. They're
a lot better answers than what Leah and I can do right now.
We need to work harder on this.
Yeah, but self-care is important.
And finally, the scariest question. What does being Asian Australian mean to you?
I think it's, like I said before, it's an ongoing dialogue. It's always relational, and it's something that I guess like it will always be a question that we'll have and hold, and there are no like easy and simple answers. yeah, I guess that's why Liminal exists.
Definitely. I don't have an answer, and I think that's why we'll be continuing this project. To just, interrogate, explore, and celebrate Asian Australian experience. Anyways, thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks for letting us ramble on.
Yeah, sorry.
During your lunchtime. Yeah, and check out the rest of the Digital Writers Festival.
It's going to be incredible. It's all online.
And we
yes.
Our friends, our liminal
friends, patrons, saints.
Buck, Dolph, and Rouge. I don't know if you know but yeah, thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.